on. Walk with me through the cellar door.
A storm is coming, Francis.
A portal to a more skeptical world.
Cellar Door Skeptics begins right now. Prepare for the revolution with your hosts, Christopher Tanner and Chris Hanna.
Welcome to another Cellar Door Skeptics. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. It is Tuesday night. We're doing this live. Usually we do this on Sunday nights, but we had some audio internet connectivity issues with Hannah the past couple of days, and so we kind of gave up, and Keith and I said we're going to man the helms, I guess. So welcome
Yay!
to
Jesus.
episode 234.
Wow. Wow. What's it like done things for that long? Because admittedly, my old show definitely didn't last that long.
Y'all weren't consistent enough. I think that was part of what it was.
Yeah.
It was a consistency
Oh,
thing.
yeah. Yeah.
And
It was a learning experience. We'll go with that. I think everybody's first podcast is kind of a learning experience, because this isn't your guys' first show either, is it?
Nope, definitely not our first show. Not our first pig, not our first
Exactly.
farm, right?
Exactly. So you see, you gotta get it right. You find a good rhythm, and away you go.
Yeah, and the funny thing this week, I've been trying to test my audio on my laptop, because for whatever reason I can't get it to connect, for the show. But for whatever weird reason, I still couldn't get it. But I ran a Zoom meeting from my work or my personal computer, and like this lady goes, "Why? What is that thing in front of your face?" I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry. That's my microphone." She's like, "You sound a lot better than you do on your other headset." I was like, "I know." That's professional audio equipment.
Yeah. It's kind of the way it goes. I actually this headphones, this was my first microphone, was this thing right here. It's actually was a lot better quality than I was expecting from a headset, but then I decided to shell out some money and got this piece of machinery, and it does the job. Although I tried to use it at my aunt's funeral, because I was doing a live broadcast of it, because we could only have so many people there, and I guess it didn't really sound as great as I had hoped, which kind of bummed me out, because I mean, I know that they recorded it for us, but it was, the point of it, we were having a live broadcast, and really the only one that came out well was whoever was standing at the podium speaking. So my wife was singing, but because she wasn't at the microphone, it didn't get picked up as well, and it kind of bums me out, because she's a good singer.
Yeah, I know, because we talked about having her on the podcast at some point to sing for us or to teach us singing, but that's okay. We'll go past that for now.
Get there.
We'll get there.
We'll get there.
So
yeah.
Tonight there's a couple of different things that I wanted to talk about. One of the big things is mail-in voter fraud, right? And it's not even the full title of the show, because technically the full title of the show is Mail-in Voter Fraud. Is it real? Let's find out. And I asked you earlier about a BoJack Horseman quote, because they have some later shows where they make fun of it, and it's this whole thing. So it's a little Easter egg for anybody that likes BoJack Horseman. But we are going to we're going to have a conversation a little bit around, is mail-in voter fraud real? In fairness, we should take all claims seriously, and we should look into it. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was we want to finish your Stampede segment from the Canadian Stampede of, I don't know, was it 1905 or something like that?
The Calgary Stampede exhibition.
Yeah, but
God,
the origins of it started very early, didn't it?
That's true. They started before the 1900s, so yeah.
Okay, but not much. I'm pretty damn close. I'm going to look it up in a minute. But to begin the show, and I have a something I want to share real quick, and it's really hilarious because I never thought ever that I would see this, right? So
Oh my
this
god.
is a Firenado that was
Oh.
happening. Oh, can't watch it. I'm gonna watch it anyway. This is a Firenado that was happening in America towards California. Now, we
Yep.
all have made fun of in the past. We've made fun of in the past. You know, the idea, right, of Sharknado. And the funny thing here is, here you have a Firenado, which is pretty close to a Sharknado, and it is by an area that has sharks. And it would be funnier if it did go into the ocean and picked up a couple of sharks and had sharks and fire together.
Yeah.
But what do you do with the Firenado, man? I mean, what do you do with that? I don't even to me, this is like an instantaneous, like, do you run? How fast can you run? And if it catches you, are you gonna start on fire too? Like, is your car gonna explode? You know? And why are these people just sitting here? Are you running on the street away from it?
Because video, man, you can make big bucks if you can submit that, or at least, oh no, you can't really do that anymore, can you? Like, it used to be that news stations would pay you money if you gave them video clips and they used it or whatever, but that doesn't happen anymore because of friggin' public domain and YouTube shit. And now we've got phone cameras that are almost as good as a real camera.
Yeah, I mean, now look at that. That one's not as like aggressive as that other one. That just looks like everything's smolder.
I mean, in all fairness, that is like quite pretty to watch, though. Like, ruling out the fact that, you know, that's kind of murderous, it's actually quite lovely to look at. It's very hypnotic, if you will. It's got that ominous, I don't know, macabre sense of danger. Would that be the thing?
Oh yeah.
It's been a very hard day on fire lines across the West. Several fires are burning out of control, fueled by. It has been a very hard day on fire lines.
There, I'll mute them. But yeah, this is crazy though, right? I mean,
yeah,
this is an insane. There's your lightning. There it is. You can see it back there. That's crazy to me.
Yeah. Well, this is what how many years in a row have they had wildfires in California?
Oh, easily, like, I don't know. I think it's got to been at least 8 years now. They've had some sort of a big fire.
But, you know, global warming's not really a thing.
Yeah.
Whoopsies.
So, I don't know. I thought, you know, we talk about, we talk about global warming all the time, and we talk about all these things. To me, the big issue is it was a tornado that had a fire in it, right? So it's just like the unlikelihood of this happening is it's a very rare thing, that happened.
But one happened last year too, didn't it?
No, I think this is the first one. So we had wildfires, but I didn't hear about a Firenado. Otherwise, we probably should have done a segment last year.
Like, yeah, it says that they're extremely rare. I just, sorry, it wasn't last year. It was 2018, I think. California's car fire spawned a true fire tornado. This is from sciencenewsforstudents.org. So I'm kind of inclined to trust them. I'm just looking for pictures of it, and they give some really neat infographics. I'm going to send you this link so you can pull it up because I'm interested, and I'm distracted because you know how we do.
The Firenado.
That's kind of wrong. Well, I mean, let's face it. We sat through how many friggin' Sharknado movies, and why not a Firenado now?
Yeah, which is crazy, right? Because we're talking, the essence of what a horror movie would be if we had,
a natural disaster horror movie. Yeah.
And actually, I kind of hope they make a Firenado.
Well, you obviously have not seen all the Sharknado movies because they have one with sharks.
I've seen a Sharknado. That's it, though. I saw the first one as a joke, and that's it. Nothing after that.
Okay, I'm gonna be brutally honest. I have not seen any of them sober. I usually get high as a kite, and my buddy Jim and I will just sit there and we'll watch these movies. As everything's going on, we'll be sitting there munching like our popcorn or whatever the hell we pulled out of the cupboard. And we'll just look at each other and we'll be like, "Oh my god," because they're just like they're parodies of themselves, which is great because if anybody took them serious, it would just be horrifying. But yeah, they actually had one. I think it was a volcano native or something. I don't. They introduced a whole bunch to like. I thought they were going to close out the series of the fifth, and then they were like, "Nope, there's one more."
Yeah, as long as they make enough money to keep themselves afloat, right? Why would they care?
Well, yeah. I mean, how many Freddy and or
Hold
Fred
on.
the
Hold on
13th?
there.
Oh,
Mm-mm. You're going down the wrong path, buddy. Oh no, did he freeze? I think Buddy froze.
come on. Let's face. I mean, am I in?
Now you're back.
Kind of. Fuck off! Really?
Anyway,
There we go.
so
I'm back.
all right. So, but so yeah, so I don't.
Sorry,
agree
apparently
with
my
you on
Wi-Fi
the
is cutting in and out.
too many. Yeah, you're having Hannah issues. I don't believe there's too many Freddy movies, and I don't believe there's too many Jason movies. So we're gonna move past that.
I'm not saying there's too many. I'm just saying that eventually they kind of reach a point where it's obvious that they're just in it for the money. I mean, like, okay, let's take a better example. Leprechaun in the Hood. Sorry, Leprechaun in the Hood. Like, don't tell me that that was not an obvious attempt. You would.
I liked it.
You would.
I liked it. I thought it was a good movie. I've seen it like 5 times.
I can't even. Oh my god, I can't even with you.
You can't. Like, I don't know what movie. Like, there is some horror movies, I'm sure, that I don't really care for, but the Leprechaun one.
Feast. That movie was weird.
I like that movie too. I've only seen the first one though. Okay, so hold
Same
on.
here. That was all
We're
we
gonna go
needed.
down tangents. We're gonna go down tangents a minute, and I think we still have some time allotted where we could talk about tangent. There is a
I like it.
there is a movie that we watched, and I can't remember. Oh, let me Google it first. It's a Scarecrow movie, and did I tell you about this?
No.
At all? Okay, so it's
I
not
don't
called the
think
Scarecrow,
so.
so it's not the typical one.
Okay.
It's a very low budget. I think it's this one. All right, hold on. I think it's The Dark Knight of the Scarecrow.
I'm listening.
Yeah. So I think this is it, but I'm not 100% sure. But basically, essentially, nope, maybe this is not it either. Nope, this is definitely not it. Man. But anyway, so we'll just keep Dark Harvest. Maybe that's what it's called. Dark Harvest. Let me try that. This is really great, you know.
This is good quality content.
But anyway, there's a Scarecrow movie. I'm gonna find this and then we'll go through it. But there's this Scarecrow movie that essentially what it does is it talks about you start out and they're going on this trip, right? In the middle of nowhere, basically New Mexico. And they're going on this trip and it's like all these weird little couples or single people and they're in this van. And you're like, okay, they're going on this like to this long hike. And the whole part of the first movie is just boring as poop. It's just like so awful. It's so slow. You're like, is anybody gonna get killed? Their van breaks down that they're all riding in. They're walking along and they decide to camp next to a scarecrow. Well, people start dying. But it's so poorly written and it's recorded on like one of those. It's a fancier handheld, but it's a handheld. Like this had like a $10,000 budget. Easy.
Wow.
So it's an like, and we didn't know this. This was just on a dual movie. So my buddy buys all these obscure horror movies because we watch them all the time, and he's just like, "Hey, I got this one. We should watch this." And so it was a dual movie, one with another famous horror actor and something else. And anyway, so the movie keeps going along, and it's so ridiculous. Like, the killing is ridiculous. It's not even that violent. These people wander away from the group, get caught in a barn with a bunch of rednecks. All I know is that one of the girls in this like escaped, and she's like running towards this car, right? And randomly there's a car nobody's seen, and all of a sudden this car just shows up on this highway. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, yeah, I bet there's scarecrows in that. And my buddy's like, there's no scarecrows in there. I'm like, I bet it's a scarecrow. Sure enough, she pounds on the window, rolls it down, and there's a scarecrow driving the car, and he tries to like lean out and kill her. So she runs.
Oh my god.
And like 15
I
minutes
need
later,
to watch this.
oh, it's bad. 15 minutes later, she somehow runs into a helicopter pad. And I was like, there's helicopter scarecrows. I'm calling it now. Like, I'm just telling you there's got to be helicopter scarecrows. My buddy's like, all right, I'll accept the car thing, but they're going to save them. There can't be helicopter scarecrows. Guess what there was? A helicopter scarecrow. It attacks them. And you're just like, what in God's green earth? Who thought this was a good idea for a movie? It must have been a bunch of like really stoned people trying to make a budget horror film.
Easily. Could it be scarecrows? How old is this movie?
I don't know. It's either early 90s or early or early 2000s. I mean, you can't tell from the video. I wish I could find my Google searches.
Yeah, no kidding. That would be hilarious. Let's see. Messengers. Oh, yeah. Oh no, that's far too recent. I don't know.
Yeah. It's not called Scarecrow. It's I'll find it. I'll find it, I believe, and we'll if I find it before the end of the show, we'll put it up at the end. Because I mean, again, this is that serious. This is like the cheapest, most low budget Scarecrow movie you could ever imagine.
Excellent.
Anyway, so is there anything else you want to
before we move on from Firenado?
Yeah.
The first Firenado, can you guess where it was recorded?
Canada?
Hint. Not quite. All nightmare creatures are born there.
Australia.
Yeah. Literally, that was the first one. January 18th, 2003. Lightning sparked a wildfire near Canberra, Australia. Its smoke produced a cumulonimbus cloud, and like the system in Reading, the clouds grew into a supercell thunderstorm. It produced winds of up to 130 kilometers or 80 miles an hour. Oh my god. What?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Like that. Oh, I'm just. Don't get me wrong. Like, nature produces some really cool shit, but this is damn nature. You scary. I'm just blown away. Wow. Oh, the cool thing about this article, so this is sciencenewsforstudents.org. They actually have like the power words thing at the bottom. So basically all of the big technical terms that they use, they actually define at the bottom of this article. This is amazing. I'm going to send this to you because love it. I already did. Never mind.
Yeah,
it always just makes me happy. Listen, I got excited talking about scarecrows. Okay.
Yeah, I like the pictures of it too because it's like, here, let me show you what it does. And you're like, no, I don't want to see how it's. Oh, it's sucking up the fire.
Yeah, well, that's actually really cool. I kind of think I'm gonna spend some time on that website another day because that's quite incredible. Like it seems like it's actually geared towards helping people learn instead of just throwing a lot of big words and being like, here, figure it out. It's like, here, this is what's going on. This is how you can understand what's going on. Like, can we get more of that? Like science communication for the win. Where's Hannah when we need him? He'd be all excited about this.
Exactly. He might be.
He's dealing with having, a life and a family.
All right, so enough scarecrow and all of that boo-ha talk. I think the main topic that we wanted to get into was is mailer fraud, voter fraud something that happened, right?
Mhm.
And so, I've seen a lot of posts. There's been a lot of information that's kind of come up.
Mhm.
And I keep seeing people claim, especially on the right, that
Mm.
mailer voting fraud is real. It happens
Mhm.
all the time. It's something that we should be scared for. Therefore, we can't have in-person voting. All of that
Mhm.
gibberish. And so, like, my big thing is, and here I'm going to give the little elevator speech, I guess. To me, there's no fraud, right? Because it's very low. Now, we're going to look
Yeah.
at the statistics and see if I'm correct. We don't have to take my word for it. Like, that guy obviously didn't care about any of the links I gave him. But I believe that voter fraud is so low, it's ludicrous that anybody even thinks that it can become a conspiracy. And here's my problem. If they want in-person voting, they have to do something different because of COVID this year. Now, I will say, do we want to make mail-in voting like the next thing for everything all the time? I think there needs to be more research for that. I don't think we just want to make an assumption that we should do this.
Mhm.
But for this year, we probably should, because if you think about it, and I'm going to give an example real quick before I finish my elevator speech. My son needs to go to the Secretary of State. He needs to get his license. You know how long the wait is in Michigan to get in because of COVID?
No.
End of November, the beginning of December is the earliest for the majority of stuff on my side of the state. And that's from August 14th or whatever day it is today. I don't know what day it is anymore. Yeah, 3 months. Yeah.
Wow.
Now you tell me how we're going to have in-person voting when we have to have that close of regulations. I get it. It's a little bit different. Lines can move faster, but still you're going to have social distancing. People are going to be pushed there. And I personally believe this is a Republican, counter to basically just say, hey, screw all of you. I don't have an interest in, helping people. And maybe there's some research that was done to say, if we do this, then, we won't have as much of an issue counting votes, and there will be less people maybe to vote for my opponent. Now, we're going to see a statistic later that actually shows in Florida how that works the opposite, but for the Republicans, but we could go from there. So to me, the first thing, if Republicans or if anybody doesn't want a bunch of mail-in voting, the first thing that should happen is literally we should honestly take a look at how can we open more polling places. What is our cost going to be to do that? Right?
But then you're talking like a socialist, because that might come out of taxes, and can't give bigger tax breaks to wealthy if you're actually spending tax money on democracy. Like, come on.
Yeah.
From everything that I hear from all the American sources that I get, because there aren't as many decent Canadian sources, is that in the States it's so much harder to vote. Like, they keep changing the requirements for what you need to identify yourself. They make it extraordinarily difficult to vote. They keep disenfranchising specific groups of people, such as the poor, by not mandating that employers have to let you go vote, or transportation to go vote, because some people, they can't drive, they can't take transit, just because of health needs or whatever. And by keeping those people from voting, you basically make it so that the person that they support has less of a chance. And it's all about trying to shoot the opponent in the kneecaps, from the GOP's from what I'm seeing of the GOP's playbook. It's just about hindering the other side's ability to support themselves and making it as hard as possible, so you don't actually have to try that hard to win, which is kind of ironic, given that that's the party of pull yourself up by your bootstraps and all of that. It's like, you can encourage people to be their best without throwing everything at them, right? Like, I think we can agree on that. And it just, it definitely seems like a deliberate attempt to reduce the likelihood that your guy is going to get a vote. And which is, again, weird, because there also is a far too much of a support base among those disenfranchised communities for the GOP, which is so infuriating, because that's a vulnerable group that with better education would realize that that guy doesn't give a shit about you. That guy just sees you as cheap, expendable labor.
Yeah, exactly.
Because let's face it, unless Trump can exploit you or gain something from you, he wouldn't wipe his ass with you. Like, that's just the kind of human being that he is. That's the position that he's in. I mean, given that he is a terrible businessman, he's been bankrupt how many times? And yet he's still applauded and seen as a success. I just, sorry, I'm tangenting on that one now too.
But I think, you know, the big thing, right, is that's 100% fair. Those are things that we can look at. But like for tonight, the big thing is to understand what really truly is voter fraud, and do they have any sort of leg to stand on, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to give the long answer, but TLDL, too long didn't listen. It's not really an issue. It's not a thing. I mean, Hillary won the popular vote by what, 3 million votes, and according to Trump, that was all illegal. So he really thinks there's that many illegal immigrants? Hey, get out of here with that garbage. Like, the only reason you say that is because you know that your fan base is somehow believing in that, because you've propagated this myth that they're coming for your gerbs, instead of, hey, these are people who might need a better chance at life, who might need out of a very toxic situation, but don't quite qualify for refugee status, which you wouldn't give them anyways, because even though they're over the border and they're trying to get refugee status, it's just easier to demonize and vilify and otherize them ultimately than to say, yeah, come on in. You're going to contribute to our society. Why not? Which is another thing that I don't understand, because most people who come to your country do so because they want to be there, and they want to be there a lot more than the people who already live there, which again is a whole other set of issues that, you know, needs to be addressed from the bottom up.
Exactly. And that's, you know, the weird thing about this whole thing, is that people just aren't paying attention, I don't think.
No.
But so the first thing that I went into and decided to look at, right, was a study that was done by the Brennan Center for Justice, right? You know, so they have a really good debunking the myth here, right? They put all their links in here. They have a whole bunch of different studies. They have a 2017 analysis. They have a comprehensive study for 14 years. They did 2 more studies, so they're compiling all of this through there.
Yeah, this is a beautiful document.
Guess how many voter fraud was happened in 2016 in the main election?
This many.
Less than that. 4 documented cases.
And what's hilarious about that is, okay, so I guess the one thing that I'm now just wanting to confirm up is that if they say 4 cases, does that mean only 4 specific votes, or is each case representative of a number of votes? That's the only follow-up question that I have on that one currently.
Yeah, and we can get into that in a minute. So we let's put that down as a little item to check off. But yeah, so this right here has all the different studies that you can even imagine. And this is where, you know, we have the link in the description. I don't have time to go through every bloody study. I don't. But for anybody that wants to sit here and question it, the percentage rate is down to less than 1/17 million of a percent.
That's just, and that doesn't surprise me. And here's another thing that I wanted to bring up on this is, you got to stop and think about it. If votes are within a certain number, like if candidate A has only a handful of votes more than candidate B, they generally do a recount of that just to make sure that they know exactly who won, and that they can root out any potential errors, any potential, like miscounts that may have happened, that sort of thing, right?
Yep.
Because that's what happened in Florida back in 2000, right?
Mm-hmm.
that's pretty much as the best you could hope for if you were trying to fraudulate an election. And that's really just, as they said in the beginning of this beautiful document here, they said that quote, most reported incidents of voter fraud are actually traceable to other sources, such as clerical errors or bad data matching practices. And again, the margin of error, like even at below 1%, that's not going to sway an election. It's really not. So this whole idea that the election is rigged and there's all this rampant voter fraud and all, it just seems like it's just a battle cry for, I don't think I'm good enough to win, so I'm just going to blame somebody else. And that's really all it sounds like.
Yeah, pretty much that's kind of my take on it too. But why don't we ask Trump, right? So what happened? Trump formed a commission to look at voter fraud during 2016. So this is not a Democratic picked commission. This is a specific commission that Vice President Mike Pence helped put together. Guess how many, what they found? Why don't you just take a guess?
What they found? Nothing. Yep. I'm guessing they found nothing.
Yep. The Trump administration later complied with the court order to turn over the documents, because at first they didn't turn the documents over. So they had to comply to turn the documents over, and the commission then met twice and didn't issue any report. So they disbanded the committee. And essentially what happened is they wrote a letter to give his findings. And for some people, no matter how many cases of voter fraud you show them, there will never be enough for them to admit there's a problem, right? That's what a lot of people were claiming. That's what Trump said. That's what this Kobosh governor said. And they are claiming he is willfully blind. So now, this is a hand-picked Trump commission, right, by his own committee. This is not Democratic-led. And here we have where they decided that he said that they literally could not find anything.
Oh, what? No. No. That's shocking. So very shocked. I must be picked up off the floor.
Yep. His response is those figures were never brought to the commission, and that he hadn't presented any evidence of claims of double voting. He said the commission was presented with a report claiming 1,000 convictions of various forms were conducted since 1948. So they took the data, and this is what we talk about, data integrity. I mean, and this is what I do for a living, for Christ's sake, to some extent, right? Like I scrub data, I look at data, I have to understand it to help our clients. This is what this committee came to, is they gave the report that there is some reporting, but
somebody just wants to be on the podcast.
Yeah, it is not anything from that election.
Yeah, shocking. Yeah, I do love that they delivered this line, because it's one of my favorite lines. The plural of anecdote is not data. But that's like, I mean, on the one hand, yeah, no, it's not surprising. On the other hand, it would be nice if this actually mattered to the other side, for the people who were sitting there going, oh, voter fraud, voter fraud, voter fraud. And I'm sitting here going, okay, number one, you guys won, we're going to put that in air quotes, won the election. So what the hell are you complaining about? Number two, the data says nothing happened. So where's your basis? Where's your claim? Like, are you just like repeating opinions and populist ideas, or are you actually proving something? Like, I remember years and years and years ago, back before I had fully committed to no longer being on the conservative side of things, there was after Obama won the election the first time in 2008, there were claims that there were people going, oh, I voted for Obama twice, blah blah blah, it's so great. And back in those days, I actually tried to find these videos or whatever, and I couldn't find squat, and that really pissed me off because I'm like, I want to agree with you, but your problem is you've got nothing to back you up. Like, you've got no proof. You're just saying it's out there. Well, you've got to provide it at some point in time, and that, I think, was kind of what really helped push me away from, whatever conservatism was holding me in. And it just, the lack of integrity is just all populist claims, and really is just people being sore winners. I don't get it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. Now here, the Washington Post is providing 7 more cases. So if the first one wasn't enough data, there's 7 more studies that they presented that essentially are talking to, and this is from 2017. So this isn't anything, I hate this website so much. This isn't anything recent that just came out that's trying to debunk Trump.
Yeah.
The most comprehensive
This is just
case,
simply taking a look at the claims.
Yep. So the one we talked about that ran for 14 years, there's only 31 credible instances in that case.
Right.
Yep.
And it can be kind of, I mean, you can't necessarily say that, or it's very difficult to really pinpoint specific instances, but if there are a disproportionate number of votes counted to number of people who were checked off the list to vote, I'm not 100% sure how y'all do it down in Merca, but when I was the returning officer for the federal election many years ago, we would check off their name off a list and the votes, and we could quantify. We could say we had this many people show up to vote. We had this many votes that we counted. Now, because there were some votes that people deliberately spoiled because people can be terrible, we had fewer votes than we had voters, and that just was kind of the way it went. There was nothing wrong with it. It was people exercising their democratic right to be an idiot and doing so, and then that was that. But we didn't have, if you have more votes than voters, you do a recount, and if you still do, then you need to do a little bit of an investigation because there's something funny business going on. But that's also the thing about mail-in voting, is that you can do a 1-to-1 ratio of votes to voters. And even if you have X amount of spoiled votes, if you're keeping track of that, you should have relatively the same number of votes and spoiled votes to voters. So there's this idea that there's some sort of rampant voter fraud going on. Again, it doesn't quite add up. And this article in the Washington Post, this is from 2014.
Yeah. Well, that's what all of these are. So, this one turned up 86 criminal convictions. This one had 27. So we're not talking millions like they're worried about, right?
Yeah.
There's 4 out of 136 million in this one. So think about it that way. So if you have that 136 million, that I don't think I can even get a real percentage. Yeah, it's like a million, not even a million. It's lower than that of a percent. It goes so far out. So like, think of it that way. That's the idea that we're dealing with now.
The one thing that I think that is going on here is that this constant cry of election fraud, or voter fraud. There is, in some ways, legal quote unquote voter fraud going on because there's a deliberate effort to disenfranchise and prevent voters, which may not meet the definition for voter fraud, but it is still in the same vein attempting to sway the election. It's just doing it in a legal way, which really puts it in a gray area, because that's when you get, the lawful evil people who come out and will, use legal loopholes to exploit and prevent people from voting and all of that. And it's utterly awful, but it's legal. Therefore, people are more okay with it and more likely to justify it. Unfortunately, I can't read the article because it's behind a paywall now, but it's oh, hey, there we go. There's, you know, an article from 2016 that the Washington Post article we've got here links to, saying here's the completely legal way to rig an election. And it's not wrong, because all you have to do is tinker, you gerrymander. So that's the legal way to win the election that I'm seeing here, is the whole gerrymandering thing. I think you had Jen and I on to talk about that years ago. There's gerrymandering, there's disenfranchising voters. That's how you're actually committing voter fraud. None of this, you know, oh, all these people are double voting, all these illegals are voting. Really? What's your proof?
Yeah. So here, and this one's even better, right? Here is recent voter fraud elections. So I don't know how far this goes back. It doesn't tell me. But these are all the documented cases. 1,300 documented cases, 1,100 convictions, 48 civilian penalties. I don't know what the diversion program is, judicial findings, official findings, and then you can scroll down here and you could pick per state. And it actually will give you a list, tell you what they are, and you can kind of go through. They even have people's names in here, right?
Wait, which link is this one? I don't think I opened that one.
This is from heritage.org.
Oh, I do have that open.
Yeah, this one was just, you know, so here's fraudulent use of absentee ballots. There you go. That's a fair one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, click on details. Oh, they have a source. They have a source too. So it's not the only thing. On an applicant or he pled guilty to providing false information on a voting application. So he forged the name. So there you go. There's one case where he did that, you know. And this Texas one, this election was actually overturned. So essentially, they challenged the results, claiming the voter harvester had submitted a number of illegal mail-in ballots and that numerous eligible provisional ballots were uncounted. A district judge agreed, invalidating the election and ordering a new election. So there you have a small version of where this actually did happen, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, and how many of these are happening in, okay, so we got a lot from 2020, 2019. So these aren't even elections where, you know, a handful of votes is going to change things. These are all just small municipal and what do you guys call your state elections? Because we have provincial elections, but I don't. Is it just a state? Oh, okay.
Call them state elections.
Okay, I don't. I mean,
I don't either. No.
Even at the state level, it's really not gonna, like, a handful of votes is not gonna sway it. At the municipal level, you might make somebody sweat a bit in their boots, but it's not gonna do it. It's not gonna do that much. Let's see. We have ineligible voting, false registrations. Okay. So I'm just kind of curious, because my assumption is that a lot of what people are thinking is impersonation fraud or false registrations.
They could be. And so we'll tackle that in just a second. But look at this right here. These are for everything for the election was overturned, right?
Mm-hmm.
Every one of these, the election was overturned. Georgia's 28th House, county, city, city. I don't know what that one is. I'm guessing that's a city one.
Mm-hmm.
That's a Democratic primary. So there you go. Democrats participated too.
Holy crap! They give articles for the case. That's awesome.
Yeah,
I like this website. This is neat.
Yes, and this one's for the state board. So here we have all of them. So if we count, we go 1. What do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 on the first page. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 20 times since the early 90s has this happened, where they've been found and convicted.
Like
So,
that.
to Trump's point, it can happen. That's fair. But really, what's the worst ones that we have? Is this something that we're going to force everybody to vote in person because of it? And if we know this is a problem that could be used on a larger stage, why aren't we working to figure out how to fix that with the money instead of just telling everybody to go to the poll? You know?
Mhm.
Yours was fraudulent use of absentee ballots. That's what you wanted to look at?
Yeah. No. Okay, so let's see this one.
Yep. So there is a lot more. Now the difference with this is none of these, not a lot of these are used for large masses, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And here you go. See where you said you have to match it up. 61% of the ballots for this Republican candidate, where only 16% of mail-in ballots were registered Republicans.
Uh-huh. Multiple people, including express their suspicion, organized the collection of absentee ballots, and completed empty mail-in ballots. But the thing is, though, is that they caught it. And
Yes.
so for it to actually sway the election, it has to be noticeable for starters. I mean, I know there's the whole, small things add up, but not when you're talking counting, a portion of your population. So 61% of the votes cast for the Republican, only 19 or 16% were registered Republicans. Yeah, so they can see that, there's a little bit of a discrepancy, and they can look into that if need be. So I think there's still not much of a case to be made for what happened here.
No. And now think of it this way too. And this is another, discussion point to some extent, is if we're still that worried about it and we still have this fear around it, why not look at it this way? Fine. Do Zoom meetings for everybody. Y'all get to vote via Zoom, or you get to do this. Yep, I'm going to vote. Boom. You're going to do this. You're going to pick that. You could maybe even put it electronically on your screen. I don't know. There's got to be a better way to do this. We cannot be this far behind where we're going to say we're going to postpone the election and, we're not going to do anything about it. Because without this, we lose our democracy here.
Yep.
And I might as well just be Canada then and have a queen.
Him, cheerio. And can I just point out that it was the Republican candidate in this election that was found guilty of voter fraud? Or it was a Republican candidate who benefited from voter fraud. So where was the outcry over that from the GOP? Oh, it was quiet. That's right. Because, their side can't do any wrong. Not that I'm saying we're perfect. I'm just saying that, it's a tendency to not look at, or to throw stones while living in a glass house, to take advantage of the adage.
Exactly. Sorry. Exactly. And then that's the idea here, is without that being without that option, what are we gonna do? Like, I want the vote because I want an ability to say I no longer want you as my leader. I want to be able to say that.
Yeah.
And for you to say, well, we can't really do this, or we shouldn't really do this, is disgusting and sad, and all it does is demonstrate the fact that maybe you want to be dictator for life. I don't know. I mean, now I'm getting a little pissy and conspiratorial, and I'm trying to avoid that. But that's kind of what this feels like here, is that we could fix some of this, right? Now here's the best part. Want to know the best part?
I always.
Okay. It's coming. I had to turn my ad blocker off for this stupid website too, but it's coming.
Oh no.
Oh, who's that? I don't know who that is.
It's a Cheeto in charge.
Yeah, his hair is not quite, orange today.
Huh.
Now, okay, we gotta stop here. You could tell she does not want him to hold her arm. This is very clear.
Yeah.
Don't touch me.
I mean,
Anyway.
I mean, it Yeah, I mean, to play devil's advocate, she is holding the railing with her other hand, but yeah, she definitely is like, no, this bag is in my hand. It's okay.
Now, guess who turned in a mail-in ballot for Florida's primary election?
No, you don't. No, there's no way that the guy who threatened to take down the post office because he didn't want mail-in ballots would ever send a mail-in ballot. Never. No. Mm-mm.
Yep. He
Yeah.
even criticized drop boxes this week. Like that dude's just crazy sometimes. But on Monday he tweeted, that some states use drop boxes for collection of universal mail-in ballots. So who's going to collect these ballots, and what might they be done to bring their tabulation a rigged election? So bad for our country. Blah blah blah. But absentee ballots are acceptable. I don't understand what the difference is, and maybe we'll go through that later. But we're gonna ignore the post office battle and just move on from that.
That's another topic.
Yeah, we're not gonna talk about that tonight. I made a joke in the show. We're not gonna do that though. But they are registered Republicans in Palm Beach County since last year. He had to change his residence out of New York, and they use mail-in ballots in March, and then again this month. Now, technically, they didn't actually physically mail them in, right?
Yeah.
They used someone to bring the votes as a representative for them. And they picked up the ballots.
It's just...
But here, who were the biggest winners since Florida allowed that to happen? Republicans in Florida. So like even though the Democrats are the one pushing for this, it may bite us all in the ass. I mean, it might. So I don't know. I just think it's funny because he had them pick up a mail-in ballot. He's obviously not going to drive down there or drive to an election center to do it. He's going to mail it. It's going to get sent somehow, or maybe he'll send a helicopter with a scarecrow in it to deliver it directly to Florida.
That is a horror movie and a half.
That would be typical Florida, everyday Florida. So at the beginning of this, we kind of talked a little bit about, different options, different things like that. And, so my list, my big list is more polling stations.
Mm-hmm.
Give us a national paid holiday to do this, and give us a week to submit our voting. So basically, give us a floating national paid holiday to be able to go down and vote, open polling centers for a full week, allow people to come in and out, and guess what? Hold repercussions for every company that says you can't go vote. Force the companies to set up sign-up sheets so that you could pick your times and make sure there's enough times that, essentially you aren't going to be missed for a full day. So if it is a full manufacturing day, right? In my opinion, we just shut down. But, like Twitter's doing.
Make it a holiday.
Shut down. Yeah.
Make it a holiday.
You can
make it a national holiday.
Yep. You could standardize all local elections to federal election days, everything. You can make everything standard across the country and make a federal mandate. But what have Republicans not done? They've not done that. Where's Trump been silent? No national holiday. If he right now declared a national voting holiday and said the polls will be open from 6 a.m. to 6 a.m. the next day and require every state to have staff in there and say, we don't care how you do it, you're going to do it, or we're going to give you funds to pay everybody $10 an hour, make it a holiday, I would literally, I would go take a 16 or 24-hour shift just for that $10 an hour. I would do it. That'd be easy cash.
Yeah.
I'd do it.
Well, yeah,
maybe not 24 hours.
And I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, why does it have to be one day? Like, yes, national holiday is perfect, but you also got to remember there are some, as we've learned, essential services, like places where people go to get food, all that type of thing, which is cool. Guess what? Boom, expanded it out to 2 days.
Yeah. Yep. Or again, you could give the floating holiday to anybody that basically says we're requiring your company to pay for that day. We'll give a tax credit on the back end for every employee to your organization. There you go. Now we're solving we're giving rich people more money. So let companies do that, and then basically tell people, have companies orchestrate that, and then, let's start a committee that allows you to turn your organization in for screwing with you. And the difference is like if you get fired for it, then you should be able to sue them, and the federal government should assist and pay for your legal fees and sue the shit out of that organization. And then that way you will have a couple of them you'll make an example out of. You could do this every 4 years easily. This is an easy thing you can do. I mean, technically we could do it every 2 years. Or you could just do it every year. Move all elections to 1 month and say, hey, this is the 1 week we get to vote every month. This is when you get your paid day off. Call it a day. Seems simple to me. The only thing that's missing is daycare.
Yeah. The frustrating part is that you guys used to have the Johnson Amendment, which, Trump had to do away with to cater to his evangelical base, which basically said by virtue of being a tax exempt organization, churches were not allowed to publicly endorse specific candidates. Yet they would always do that. They would always flaunt it. And in spite of the complaints from the FFRF, nothing ever came of it. Nothing, because they didn't actually care. And that's part of the problem, is that this attitude of apathy, this whole, well, we can't change things, so why bother? Or if we change it, it's going to be really hard, which flies completely in the face of the so-called American dream, because that's like literally what the American dream is about making things better through hard work, busting your ass and committing and actually taking action. But even something as simple as saying you don't pay taxes, you're not allowed to be politically active, essentially, that has to be a personal pursuit. That cannot be a pursuit of your organization to endorse a specific candidate. Yet they would still do it. They would still flaunt it, and they would always laugh about it. They would laugh in our faces about it because they could. They would manipulate their congregants into voting for specific candidates because. Just because they couldn't, specific candidates would pander to certain issues such as abortion or, the right to die with dignity. And they just wouldn't. So the trick is to get the people on board with this idea that you need to be allowed to vote, because one of the weird things growing up conservative here is that there was this whole, among the conservatives that I was around, there was this mentality that if you don't vote, you don't get to complain. Which, 31-year-old me now is sitting here going, but hang on, why are you making it hard for people to want to vote, or harder for people to vote? Why aren't you actually becoming more active in the political sphere? I know it's really boring and there's a whole lot of garbage and a whole lot of nonsense, but guess what? It gets worse the less active people are in it, and it doesn't get better. And for the people who will sit there and be like, oh, it's, there's nothing we can do, of course there's something you can do. Have you ever been in a tent with a mosquito? That one mosquito is the most annoying son of a bitch, because you can never find it and you can never kill it, and keeps you awake for 5 hours. That's all it takes, is one mosquito in the net. So sure, one person maybe not be able to make a difference, but when it comes to changing the mind of the group, the most important person is not the first person doing it, it's the person that joins them, because that's social validation, and that signals to other people that, hey, this is something that's socially acceptable, this is something that we can do. That's how, the like a cult leader will gain traction, is because, all they do is have a few followers, and socially speaking, they have that validation. So all it takes is for a small number of people to get politically involved, to try to actually take action. And we're seeing that people are just becoming more and more and more apathetic. I'll see comment threads where, like, there was one yesterday where the guy was going off about how smart he was because he didn't support either Trump or Biden because they're both rapists. Well, I'm sorry, but at least Biden probably won't stack the Supreme Court with Gorsuch and Scalia wannabes, and it's important to think about the broader picture instead of just sitting there going, it's all going to hell, whatever. Like, when it goes to hell, okay, you can take that attitude. But if it's not hell yet, there's still a chance to take action and improve. And yes, of course, there's hard work. any sort of growth, any sort of improvement is always going to involve that hard work. You just have to put in a little bit of elbow grease. And if everybody's doing it, if everybody is taking just a little bit of action, there's going to be a hell of a lot more movement, even if some people aren't taking as much action, simply because everybody's doing it. And with many hands, it makes for light work, and whatever platitude you want to use for that type or for that motivation. But getting involved is the first step, you know.
Exactly. And that's the thing here, you know, right, folks, is we have this preconceived notion that we want all of this, but yet we're not willing to do a damn thing about it. So I don't know. Those are our recommendations. There is your analysis. We can talk for it. You can send us emails. You can post on our Facebook. You do whatever the hell you want to do to communicate with us. And we'll be happy to have you on. I mean, I challenged a couple people today. It's like, fine, screw it. I got a podcast. We're going to talk about this. You want to come on? Here, fucking message me. Do it.
Hell yeah.
I dare you.
I double dog dare ya.
There you go.
Playground
Anyway.
rules. That's how it goes.
For the last segment tonight, we're going to do the Canadian Stampede conclusion. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give Keith 5 minutes of uninterrupted conversation with everybody here to go through. I want you to kind of back up a little bit because it has been a couple of weeks since you did this. So what I want you to do is back up, and I want you to go through and say, hey, this is kind of what we covered before, and this is what we're going to cover for tonight.
Okay. So when we last left off, the Stampede was, we were talking kind of like late 40s, early 50s, but up to that point, you know, it started off in the late 1880s. Calgary was just this little kind of shanty and a horse that was tied to a post. It's kind of all that was here. And because the prairies have all of these farming things going on, they decided to have an agricultural exhibition. So that's initially how the Calgary Stampede got started. Was there was an exhibition where, you know, the agricultural society would bring people together, and they would share knowledge and various agricultural practices in the West, and they would, you know, market themselves and try to encourage investment and all that type of thing, and really just kind of show off and share and help build up the community. And it grew and it grew and it grew. It took the attention of Guy Wiedeck, a cowboy of the late 1800s, early 1900s, who, with funding from 4 wealthy business people, founded the very first Stampede in 1912, at which point they had a great event and tried not to do it again. And then investors in Winnipeg and New York tried it, and it didn't live up. And then in the early 20s, guess what? It came back. Or late 10s, late 1910s, early 20s. How do you say it? Anyways, they decided to throw something in honor of World War I vets. Though it was a success, they didn't do it again. And then all of a sudden they realized, with the help of somebody from the industrial exhibition, that they could make this a big thing. So they combined the carnival, combined the exhibition, and there you have the Calgary Exhibition and Stampede, which now brings us back to 1946. So in 1946, it was discovered that there was a major crude oil reserve just outside of a small town of Leduc, which is about 20 miles south of Edmonton, which is the capital of Alberta, which I don't know how many miles it is, but I can tell you it's about a 2.5 hour drive, maybe 3 hours if you stop a little to Tinkles. So this was called Leduc Number 1. And this reserve basically provided the geological key that was needed to the vast reserves of conventional oil, and it really is what kicked off the petroleum industry for exploration, development, and the oil industry in Alberta really took off, and is a big part of the reason why the Stampede was able to expand the way it did when it did. So yes, we're aware of the we're more aware of the problems associated with fossil fuels. But in the 40s, oil and gas replaced farming as like the primary industry of the prairies of Alberta, and resulted in a quick rise economically, and allowed even Canada itself to become self-sufficient in less than a decade by becoming one of a major exporter of oil. There's good money in it. Not that I'm trying to sound as excited about it. I'm just that's what happened. That's how it happened. That's how this country, or this province specifically, became so dependent on oil as we know it, and why we just refuse to let it go. So this boom in the late 40s resulted in the population of Calgary doubling between 1949 and 1956. Many of the people who moved to the city in this time were immigrants, and they actually not only embraced the tradition because it was strongly encouraged starting in the 20s to celebrate the heart of the West, and for everybody to show up as cowboys and cowgirls and everybody in between. But they took part in it, and they would encourage their friends and families back home to in 1985, James Gray wrote a series of books called A Brand of Its Own, The 100-Year History of Calgary Exhibition and Stampede. And he referred to the 1950s as the golden age of the Stampede because of this rapid growth and expansion. This is something that's kind of undeniable, since the overall attendance of the Stampede at the time, it was only 6 days. It doubled, it increased by 200,000 visitors over 6 days. 200,000 people over 6 days came to Calgary. And this happened between 1949 and 1959. So nearly every year of the Stampede during the 1950s, it beat the attendance records of the year before. So with this rapid growth, rapid increase in interest meant that the exhibition grounds, they needed to expand. So in 1950, the Stampede Corral, which is still stands today, was completed and was at the time the largest indoor arena in Western Canada. It even at the time housed the Western Hockey League team, not to be confused with the modern Western Hockey League. There's been things going on, and I know sports as well as some people might think. So I don't fully understand, but anyways, and that team was that hockey team was the Calgary Stampeders, and even won a championship in the Corral in 1954. Now keep in mind, this is back in the 50s, so big acts came through there, such as the Minneapolis Symphony Orchestra and Louis Armstrong himself. Oh yeah.
So hold on a second. I got a question. I got to ask a question.
Yeah.
You got your 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Gave you 5 minutes, buddy. Now I'm going to ask a question. So there's a hockey team that's named after the Stampede.
Oh, it's not just a hockey team. I mean, back then it was the hockey team.
Okay.
But there is.
Wait, are you telling me hockey wasn't always popular in Canada? So you didn't have 100 million teams?
We had a lot of small leagues, and that league actually had a lot of small teams before it ultimately folded and I think rebranded. I'm not 100% sure how that played out, but the Calgary Stampeders is actually let's see. It's been the name of a few small minor league teams, but currently it is also the name of the big football team in Calgary. So there's the NFL, which is the NFL, and then the CFL, which is the Canadian Football League. And as far as I'm concerned, it's more exciting. You got 10 more yards to go. You got one fewer down. The players actually have to really, really get good. They can't just stumble into a victory all the damn time. But that's enough firing shots across the board. But yeah, so the Calgary Stampeders, they have been a couple of different teams, but back in the 50s, 60s, and I think even in the 70s it was, it was basically Calgary's hockey team. So for the grounds, other improvements were made to the grandstand, which I'm pretty sure I mentioned last time, where they held the rodeo and other performances and shows. And the racetrack, they rebuilt it in 1954. Then came the Big Four building. Those of you who may remember from last time, I mentioned that there were 4 benefactors. They were wealthy, prominent business people in Calgary and Cochrane, which is a small town just northwest of Calgary, although it's now almost part of Calgary at this point. The Big Four building was built and named in honor of the Big Four. And it was constructed and opened in 1959 and served as the city's largest exhibition held in the summer, and would then be converted into a 24-sheet curling facility during the winter. Some of you might know what curling is from watching the Winter Olympics. That's, I think, the only time anybody ever knows what curling is. It's
I
where they
actually like curling. Honestly, I watch it when it comes on the Olympics. We don't
I
get curling broadcasts in America, man.
Well, there actually curling is huge, and the community specifically, it's big in. But there are a lot of Canadians who actually will sit and watch curling. It's kind of incredible because I was talking about sitting and watching it. I had a couple of friends be like, "Oh yeah, no, I love watching it." And I'm like, "Really? I mean, I have to be in the mood to watch it, but I enjoy it when I do." Interesting. So yeah, that's the sport where all you can hear is them shouting, "Hurry hard!" And they're winning, hearts and all of that. There's actually a big tournament every year in Canada. It's like every province has their representatives. It's kind of neat, potential topic for later on. But in spite of all this growth, of course, anybody who's, an adult remembers growing up, you had like growing pains and shit, right? Not just the TV show, but like actual, your bones aching and all of that shit. So there were parking shortages, which is a problem that still exists today. Only now we just know how to do it better because now we, gouge you through the teeth. And then, of course, there was also an inability to meet demand for grandstand show rodeo tickets, in spite of these improvements. But the growth continued well into the 60s and 70s, and they finally hit 500,000 guests over the course of the 6 days in 1962. But by 1966, they had hit 654,000. So the organizers expanded it from 6 to 7, from its original 6-day run to 9 in 1967. And then the next year, they would actually expand it to 10 days, which it still is today, in 1968. So they really realized that they could make some shit on it. They could make some money off of this. But the overall attendance didn't officially hit the 1 million mark until 1976. But in 1983, the Olympic Saddledome was completed, and it took the Corral's place as the top sporting arena. Now, it didn't completely take the Corral out of the game. In fact, both facilities were host for hockey and figure skating events back in 1988, where Calgary was home to the Winter Olympics. Yeah, some of you may remember this from the movie, was it Cool Runnings, about the Jamaican bobsled team?
Yeah.
They actually still, there are Jamaican bobsled teams that come and they train in Calgary because we have the facility. It's actually pretty cool. Some of them, I guess, used to go see an old coworker of mine who was manager of a fitness equipment store in one of our neighborhoods. Anyways, so since then, the overall attendance of the Stampede has held pretty steady at 1.2 million visitors a year. However, they did break that record in 2012 during the centennial anniversary of the Stampede, because remember, the first official Stampede exhibition and all of that was in 1912, and they hit 1.4 million people. So Calgary's population more than doubles, basically. But various, natural disasters have affected the Stampede in recent years. So in 2013, 2013 for me was kind of a very important year in realizing kind of the importance of actually believing the idea of man-made global warming, because we almost always flood in June now. We never had that. That's something that's never really been a big issue. We have flood plains, but Calgary itself never really had floods. But in 2013, half the city was shut down for several days. I think a week or two, because of the damage that the rising water caused. Like I drove past downtown. I was on a date one night. Drove past downtown and I looked and it was pitch black, and it's never pitch black. It was eerie, cool but eerie. So our city was shut down. Like some of the smaller towns around Calgary really were hit. Ironically, a small town called High River, I think they had some of the worst of it. So this flood, it actually, so the river runs right through the grounds, and so some of the grounds were actually damaged by the floods. Well, I wrote "River runneth through it." Oh, damn! I missed an opportunity to use that one. Anyways, so it damaged a lot of the grounds, and it even did a lot of damage to the Saddle Dome. The Saddle Dome actually had to be shut down, and our jumbotron was like repaired, and all of these things. There were a lot of concerts that year that were canceled and rescheduled. Some events were fortunate enough in that they only had to be relocated. But the biggest blow came this year when COVID-19 happened. It didn't
Of
take
course,
place.
right?
Yeah, exactly. So for the first time in over 100, or in about 100 years, the Stampede did not take place. So what do we do? Well, the spirit of the Stampede did live on, and it. I'll admit there is something heartwarming about the fact that it can bring the community together. Although, as my wife, who has a degree in criminal justice, informed me, apparently right after the Calgary Stampede goes on, divorce lawyers make a killing because it's a oh yeah, it's a 10-day drunk fest. A couple of years ago, there was a video that went viral there of a girl downtown who, as it turns out, was a stripper up in northern Alberta. She was embarked. She was in a threesome, basically. It was a caught on video where she was in a threesome with two other guys, and it made the rounds. She got famous for a couple of days, and then, of course, everybody forgot because, the shock and awe of a woman actually being sexually liberated enough to try something like that, it wore off. So the spirit of Stampede carries on, not so much in that vein, but in the sense that pancake breakfasts, which over the course of 10 days there are hundreds of. The mayor is quite busy during those days. In fact, most local politicians are, because they're, of course, going out, getting brownie points and all of that. So there were pop-up drive-through breakfasts for pancake breakfasts. There were pop-up drive-throughs for a lot of the Midway foods, food staples. Specifically mini donuts, because that's one that really is like a big seller. That's the one that I think you see most of at the fairgrounds at the Stampede.
They do that down here too. People love those damn things.
Oh, I know.
They're expensive as shit. They put little toppings on them, and you're like,
yeah.
I'm paying $8 for what? Really? I could buy
crack.
a box of donuts.
They're paying $8 for crack. That's really all it is.
I like donuts. I don't dislike donuts. They make me sick. But mini donuts make me a lot
Really?
less sick. Yeah, it's the sugar content, and the large quantities of sugar bother my stomach.
Good to know. So I'll be careful finding a maple.
Donuts.
I'll be careful finding a maple whiskey for you, just to make sure it doesn't have high sugar.
No, you can. I'm okay with that. I can't drink. I can have like a shot of it, right? I just don't drink it. I couldn't sit here with a full glass of it and just go.
Yeah,
yum, yum,
and
yum.
that's well. Well,
Now I'm getting sick. Anyway,
yeah,
you're railing the show, Keith.
Yeah, I'm derailing my own segment. What's wrong with me? So even the fireworks shows. So every night there is, after the grandstand show, it features the Young Canadians, which is it's an organization that every year young men, young boys, girls, and everyone in between of under the age of 18, I think they're over the age of 8, but under 18, they take part in what's called the grandstand show, and it's this performance that goes on every night after the rodeo events for the day. It's a big celebration. You get to come down. They're all performing, singing, dancing. Sometimes they have acrobatics going on. It can be pretty neat to watch. My wife is actually friends with one of the music directors, so we've had few free tickets to go. I don't think she's as big of a celebrity outside of Canada, but the musician Jan Arden played, and he was accompanist for her, and then he played at our wedding that year, and that was kind of cool to brag about. And so there's the grandstand show, and then after the grandstand show, by around 10 o'clock in the evening, they do these fireworks. And the best part is that on the last night, they take the fireworks that they've set aside for the night and all the fireworks that they didn't use across the week, and they just go nuts. And it's cool because explosions are cool, right? Unless you're a dog or somebody who's sensitive to such things, in which case it's probably living hell. And I am, sorry that you can't enjoy it. And I hope my enjoyment of it does not, make you feel bad. So
it's okay. I'm not Hannah. Don't worry about that.
He probably just turn his hearing aids down, right? Some problems. But anyways,
You're fine. Anyway, let's move on. Come
so
on.
this whole spirit thing, it helps the Stampede to, much like Celine Dion's heart, go on. But in the modern age, what is Stampede? Agriculture obviously isn't quite the demanding business that it was many years ago. It is still it's like one of the foundational industries of society. It just doesn't have as many people involved because so much of it can now be done with machinery and automation and all of that. But to be honest, not much has changed. The annual event is still kicked off every year by the Stampede Parade, which comprises of local celebrities and shows off a lot of local talent, such as like marching bands from high schools and other groups. Floats for organizations, donors, and companies who are just looking to advertise or whatever. They fill the parade, as well as horses too. Lots and lots of horses and street sweepers, because the horses don't care where they crap. But in 2011, they drew in what is considered to be one of the largest crowds. Average attendance, I think, is around 300,000. In 2011, the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, Prince William and Kate, they came out as well, and it drew a crowd of an estimated 425,000. So that's 100,000 people more in that little area of the city. Crazy. So the rodeo obviously takes prominence each year. Millions of dollars in prize money are won during these 10 days. It's a big event. We have people who come down all the way from Texas, and down in Texas, they kind of care about rodeo. So, it makes sense. The exhibition for the agricultural exhibition is still strong. It showcases a lot of the modernization of the agricultural industry, and it helps introduce city slickers like myself to horses, cows, and chickens. And yes, I think it was Hannah who mentioned 4-H clubs, and yes, Calgary apparently, or Alberta, has 4-H clubs. I thought that was an American thing. I was wrong, and I admit that. There's also
that's what I appreciate about you.
Well, that's what she appreciates about me. There is a market in a building called the BMO Center. That's where the Calgary Comic and Entertainment Expo is held. So our version of Comic-Con. And in this building, they have over 400,000 square feet of retail space.
Does BMO show up? Does somebody dress up as the little blue robot from Adventure Time?
Unfortunately,
it's called
maybe.
BMO, for Christ's sake.
BMO. Sorry, I said it really fast there. BMO Center.
BMO.
Yeah, there we go. So this retail space, they feature art, toys, household goods, foodstuffs, lots of other knick-knack paddywhacks and shit. There's even a subsection of the market that just lives up to the cowboy and western theme by focusing on, cultural relics like statues and artwork, wine and food that are western themed. But what's interesting about this is that there are vendors who wait years to get a spot in this market because it's one of the prime events of the year, and it's huge and it's packed, especially in the middle of the afternoon when it's like 30 degrees outside, because all the concrete around just soaks up that heat and radiates it, and it just holds it. So you go inside, you get, your overpriced lemonade, your overpriced Slurpee, you walk around for, 2 hours, kill time, spend, hundreds of dollars on 3 items that you didn't actually need, but somehow you got sold anyways. But then, of course, we have the Midway, the fairgrounds, the rides, the games, the carnival food, and all the lights and sounds of children and teenagers laughing and screaming as they're spun around and up and down. And who can forget the carnies? There are other small sideshows that go on. Like there's the outdoor stage, the Coke stage, which features small and big time acts that perform at the low cost of admission, which is creeping up every year and one of the biggest pains in the ass about the event. Like during the day, they'll have kids shows in the afternoon just to try to, do something for the kids because, they're there. And then in the evenings, they'll have musical acts. They've had the biggest crowd that I ever saw there was for a little band called Our Lady of Peace. Some of you may have heard of them. Some of you might even like them. I can't say that I do, so I don't really understand the appeal, but goddamn was the midnight. Okay, I like that song. I'll be honest. I like that song.
I listened to them in high school because they were like a second Smashing Pumpkins, but they still suck 100 million times worse.
You're not wrong.
Anyway, keep going.
There's also like in the area of the corral, there's other small little areas. They have like a dog show that runs a couple of times a week, like little dog performances. It's cutesy stuff like that. It's kind of fun. And then of course, at the Saddle Dome, they hold concerts and whatnot. So that's pretty much the second part of the nutshell. That is the Calgary Stampede. Obviously, if you have any questions or you want to challenge me on anything that I've said, shoot us a message. You can tweet me. You can @ me on the tweeters. My handle here I've got is @ Buddy Lumberjack, all one word. You can just tweet at me and tell me you didn't like how I did things, stuff like that. But yeah, Canner, do you have any questions?
Honestly, no. I think my bigger, I think you've covered it real well. I think the big thing for me in terms of questions would be, if it's that big of a drunken fest, why have you not purchased tickets for Hannah and I to come join you for 10 days and put us up with you, especially because it's your hometown, for Christ's sake. And B, you must not attend because you're not divorced yet, unless your wife's the wild one and you're like the sober guy that walks around with her and goes home.
No, those days are long behind me. As much as I enjoy it, the crowd, the whole cowboy rig pig type thing, I can't. It drives me nuts, and there's a whole lot of combativeness that goes on with the drunkenness, and the alcohol is disgustingly overpriced because they can get away with it. So it's fun and it's entertaining, and I usually go once a year. But I mean, the crowds, admittedly not as much my thing, but they are other people's, and the draw of all of the weird foods, like the scorpions, the deep fried anything, all the, burgers, the bloomin' onion that gives you disgusting bowels for days. It just, after a little while, it's fun. It's a nice reminder, but that's,
that's it. You're done. Yeah. You're done, so.
You're done. It's a Texas size 10-4 on that one.
Well, before we get into, because I have to do this, before we get into quick save, I have something to show you.
Ooh, I like this.
You ready? I found it.
My body
is ready.
Texted
me back.
My body is so ready for this.
It's called Dark Harvest. Oh no, you can't hear it, can you?
You haven't even hit play.
All right. Oh, I put it in the wrong one. That's why. I'm in the wrong screen.
Oopsie poopsie.
Maybe there is no audio.
Heresy.
Oh, I disconnected it. Huh, that's why.
Has anybody ever been hurt on one of these trips?
Don't worry about that. Where we're going, there won't be a person inside, I guarantee it. What the hell is that? It's a scarecrow.
This is where they camp. This is some
God.
weird earthquake thing. They're intermixing scenes that don't exist.
That scarecrow couldn't have been there for 15 years. Where's the scarecrow? Because there were no crows and there was no corn. It was there to scare us.
There's the car. The scarecrow from the car. So this was a double feature. And the reason my buddy bought this movie was because there's a movie called Escapes that's like this mini film.
Featuring Vincent Price.
It does. It has Vincent Price in it. And in fairness, this one's pretty decent. It's not the best. But it's got a bunch of short movies in it.
My God.
And it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool.
That is amazing.
The Scarecrow movie was awful. I do not recommend. I know you want to watch it, but I do not recommend you watching it. I'm sorry. I don't think I can safely recommend that.
It has a 3.7 rating on IMDb.
It's
Oh
awful.
god.
I'm telling you, it is not worth that.
Oh, my life is. Oh, that seems like an MST3K movie. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. All right, I can see that.
Like, genuinely.
Anyway, so on to quick saves. You
Yeah.
wanted to do about
Oh.
this person.
Yeah, so this is another YouTube channel that I'm going to shill for because I like them a lot and I enjoy their content. They're called Crash Course. I first found out about them a little while ago, and they have a very, very eclectic variety of different topics that they do. So what they do is they research the crap out of topics, and they break it up into a playlist. And over the course of the playlist, each it's only like a 10 to 15 minute episode will focus on one aspect of the subject. So lately, my wife and I have been repainting our house, and while I was working on some of the sealant, my wife was working on the other side of the house, and I got bored, and I decided to put in my headphones, and I actually put in the one on mythology. Really interesting. You can get a variety of different topics. There's like intellectual property, U.S. government and politics, big history, U.S. history. The one that I'm excited to watch is astronomy, and the reason I'm excited about that one is because
I'm John Green, and
is that they have working on that one Phil Plait. Now, some of you will know who I'm talking about. He's referred to as the Bad Astronomer. He has a couple of different books out. One of them is something to do with death from above, different ways that the universe could wipe us out in an instant, and it's really fascinating. He used to be a regular on Skeptic's Guide. He would just pop in and do, help out for an episode. He's a funny guy. He hasn't been on in a while, though. He's run blogs. He's actually fairly interested in the in social aspects of social justice and science. Some of you may remember, I can't remember the specific incident, but it was the one where the scientist was wearing the shirt that had, the overly sexualized cartoon woman. And, he was criticized heavily for that. And Phil Plait did a bit on that. And he goes, it's as great as it is for the discovery, the important discussion is, what the message of this says about women and how science views women as, sexual objects and not people who can bring a lot of value to the field. So I've gone through a lot of these. There are a lot of really interesting full playlists, and I think it's kind of worth it if you're looking for just for something that's going to be different than, your usual YouTube perusal. And I cannot recommend it enough.
Fair enough. I was going to say, they kind of look like South Park characters when they make fun of the Canadians, but when they were talking, they didn't get flapping heads. So
no, unfortunately, like they have, oh god, how the hell many playlists do they have? There's a lot of them here. Yeah, so it's so many different topics. I think I watched a bunch where they were talking about how I got into them was they were talking about epics and talking about the Epic of Gilgamesh and things like that, because I never really got introduced to it because public school in Canada. So there's a lot of really fascinating stuff, and if you're interested in any of these topics, give it a look. Honestly, you might learn some stuff. You might find some stuff that you go, hey, wait a second, you guys could improve this. They actually have a professional animator that they work with who does their little cartoons for them. It's really cool.
That is awesome. That's definitely worth the check out. So my quick say is a little bit sadder for the week. So we talked about a friend of mine, somebody that volunteered and worked with the CFI, Ed Brayton. He passed away. So we had talked on the show the other week that he had decided to go into hospice. Basically, he had made the decision to end his, to end his fight with all his illnesses, and he essentially passed away. So, yeah. So anyway, so for me, my quick save was basically there's been a lot of people, especially in the atheist community, which we're not super a part of as much anymore, but There was a lot of people that paying tribute. Ed touched a lot of lives. Ed was my lawyer friend who wasn't a lawyer type guy, right? He was very knowledgeable on a lot of that stuff, but he essentially, before he passed, he was very close with a couple other people in Grand Rapids, and basically said, don't send flowers. You don't have to do memorials, but if you would like to donate, you can donate to the CFI Michigan or to the general CFI fund, because essentially that was his outlet of activism as much as he could. So the link's in the description. There's a little donation button at the bottom. You're welcome to donate if you would like. You know, I've given a little bit. I give to the CFI anyway, but you know, we gave a special donation from Cellar Door Skeptics the other day. So if you would all like to pitch in and donate to them, you're welcome to. Links in the description. And you know, kind of as Ed would say, you know, essentially, you know, life's going to go on without me. The best is how can you be the best humanist to the world? And that was his message in and across the board, all over, any place you could even imagine. That's what he supported and wanted to support all the time. So, I don't know. It was a sad week. Last week, not been a good 2020, man. I'll tell you that.
No.
Not been
No,
a
it
good
has not.
2020. I don't like 2020. Maybe you can go back. You know what would be a good 2020? Ousting Trump out of the White House. That'll be the only positive end to this fucked up year. My kids go back to school next week and the week after. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully none of us get COVID in this house, because I sure as hell don't want COVID. You know what kids are. Little germ magnets. Anyway. All right. Thank you all so much.
Germ vectors.
Bootlicker. Yeah, it's not your pig, not your farm, man. It's okay. I got it. You'll have kids someday, buddy. Maybe.
One day. Yeah, they're going to be smarter than I am.
Yep, and you're going to regret that. And then they're going to come on the show and you're going to tell us stories about it. And then you're going to be like, you know what my kids did today. And be like, yep. We're old, man. We've already done this.
Am I?
You're not old. We're old. But
I'm
anyway, thank you all so much for joining us. We'll be back next week with another Cellar Door Skeptics. Hannah should be able to join us hopefully next week. We should have a lot of things coming up. We'll have an update on the campaign that I've actually been involved in for Christopher Banks of the 90th. Stop doing that. The 90th district. You're distracting me. You are a massive distractor. The 90th
Hannah's
district.
not here.
And hopefully maybe we'll have some other candidates, local candidates that we'll be able to bring on. So until next week, have an amazing fucking week. Good night, everyone.
Bye.